If you're looking for a podcast that packs in sound property advice, as well as offering you an insight into making the world of property effective and ultimately work for you, you're in the right place. Hosted by Arsh Ellahi, the original property rebel. He's written an Amazon bestseller, created the Property Investor app, the UK's first, and is an experienced property mentor. More importantly, he talks the talk and walks the walk.
Hi everyone, welcome to this session of the Property Rebel. And today we're talking about a topic which has been going around for quite a while. It's buy-to-let versus multi-let. And the reason why I've done this session is because lots of people come to me, and in some of my articles people respond back to me and say, Arsh, okay, should I still be buying buy-to-lets? Should I still be buying single-lets? Does it still produce cash flow? Is it still worthwhile having single lets in your portfolio, or would you only concentrate on multi-lets? Now, I'm going to approach this session by saying that the views that I give are my personal views, and they are not to be considered as financial advice. If you want financial advice, you need to go and find an independent financial advisor, IFA, or a FCA registered mortgage broker. So within my portfolio, I've got a real mix of properties. I've got single lets, I've got multi-lets, I've got commercial. I haven't got any industrial, believe it or not. So I've got single lets, multi-lets and commercial properties. And they are all pretty much dotted within an hour of Wolverhampton city centre. So, my first question to you listening right now is, what is your attitude towards risk? Because we have to look at what is the risk and the reward ratio. And the reason why I say that is because you've also got to ask yourself a second question, is that how involved do you want to be in your property business? Now, the reason why I ask you those questions very simply is because from a risk point of view, if you purchase a property and want to utilize it as a HMO, you'd like to think that from a risk point of view, it's going to be quite low risk. Would you agree? Because once you purchase a property and you convert it into a multi-let, you can have multiple people paying you income every month, providing that the property is occupied. Now, once you've taken into consideration your mortgage, once you've taken into consideration your utility costs, and if you use a letting agency, the management costs, in theory, you should be left with cash flow. Now, the one thing that you should be doing is looking at what is your break-even level. So what's your break-even point? BEP, as I call it. So looking at your break-even point, how many rooms are required to be occupied for it to break even? So if you've got a 4-bed HMO, for argument's sake, do all 4 rooms need to be occupied in order for the property to make money? If that's the case, there are and there will be instances where the property loses money, but you've got to have a look at over a period of a year, how many months in the year has that property lost money? Same for a 5 or a 6 or an 8, 10, 12, 15, 40-bed HMO. And you can get large HMOs like that. I've actually got a 23-bedroom HMO in just on the outskirts of West Bromwich town centre. So you've got to look at what is the break-even point. You've got to have a look at what your costs are. And more importantly, one of the key things with a HMO is who's going to manage it. Are you guys going to manage it and you're going to self-manage it to save costs? Or are you going to give it to a letting agent? Now, the reason why I ask that is because all depends on if you're going to run it yourself, how much time are you going to have to dedicate to that? Now, talking of running it, it's not just a case of put tenants in. Think of all the things that go before that. You've got to purchase the property. You then got to convert the property. Now, you've got to take into consideration stuff like, is the property licensable? Is it not licensable? There's so many different things that go around a HMO. And if you haven't watched my podcast on all the different things about HMOs, I seriously suggest that you have a quick look at my channel and see about the legislation surrounding around a HMO. Now, with a licensed HMO, how many years is a license for? Is it 3 years, 5 years? Some councils only give 3 years, some councils give 5 years. What are the requirements for that? Does every door need to have a fire door? Does it need to have a grade A or grade D fire alarm? How many occupants are you allowed to have before it becomes licensed? So these are things that they need to take into consideration. How do you put the HMO application in? Is it paper-based? Is it internet-based? How much is the fee? Have you taken that into consideration into your costings? Is the area an Article 4 area? I'd like to think that you would have thought about whether the area is an Article 4 area before you converted the property. If you converted it without knowing of whether it's an Article 4 area, you may have some questions to ask to the planning officer if they haven't already been round to see you. So these are all the things surrounding around a HMO. Now, if you're going to self-manage it, you've got to pretty much be on call, not 24/7, because that's not correct. But setting it up is probably one of the hardest things to do, because you've got to get your systems and you've got to get your systems and procedures in place. When we say that, it's because initially you want to try and get the property occupied as quickly as possible. So are you going to do the viewings yourself? Does that mean that you're going to go out and do the viewings 7 o'clock in the evening or 9 o'clock in the evening? And that will happen. You know, sometimes if you're eager to get that property occupied, if a tenant contacts you on spare room or open rent or Gumtree, for argument's sake, and they say, Arsh, I want to view it this evening because I'm looking to move somewhere quite quickly. Are you going to say, sorry guys, I can't do this evening because I'm going out to dinner with my wife? Or are you going to say, I'll tell you what, I'll come and show you the room? Most of you, if you're motivated to try and let the room quickly, will go and show the room. But you've got to take into consideration, this does take a lot of time. As well as that, it's the managing of the property. So the consistent checks, doing the fire alarm checks, making sure that there's no obstructions in the hallway, making sure that there's no fire, the fire alarm is correct and is in working order, making sure that all the doors shut, making sure that the tenants are happy, making sure that the communal areas are clean, making sure there's so many different things that you need to take into consideration. So these are things that you have to do as an ongoing management. And these are things that you have to adhere to under the HMO regulations. Now, when you look at that and you tally up all the time, you may think, well, you know, to be fair, it sounds great in theory, but I may just go with a buy-to-let. Now, just so you know, I'm still a big fan of buy-to-lets. Now, the reason why lots of people fell out of love with buy-to-lets simply because is Section 24 came into effect, where now, if you don't know what Section 24 is, I'll give you a quick rundown. So it's where you can no longer claim the mortgage interest relief into your account. So previously, if the income was £500 a month, and let's just say that your mortgage was now £300 a month and you were making £200 cash flow, you would have been taxed on the £200 cash flow. However, with Section 24, they've now said that they're going to tax you on the full £500 a month, which means that it's going to push a lot of people into the high tax bracket. And as a result of pushing them into the high tax bracket, a lot of the properties are going to become, so when you look at how much tax you're going to end up paying, it's going to actually make it not viable for you to run single lets. But you have to take into consideration that there's always going to be a massive demand for single lets, because let's face it, not everyone wants to live in a HMO. More importantly, the families that have got kids, they can't live in a HMO. So they have to live in a single let. Now, I treat a single let as a let and forget. And the reason why I say that is because if you structure the tenancy correctly, and if you do all your due diligence at the start of the tenancy, and when we talk about due diligence, not only on the property and the price that you charge, but also the incoming tenant, which is an absolute key point. If you put the wrong tenant in, expect problems. If you put a person into an uninhabitable house, expect problems. I've got this saying, offer kennels, expect dogs. Sounds logical, but if your property is not up to scratch and you find a tenant, the people that are going to come to that property is going to be the people that are attracted to that property. So if the property is in need of repair, you're not going to find a professional working tenant that's going to want to take a property that's in need of repair. You're going to start going down the market of the benefit market or the desperation market, the people who can't get accommodation or who have struggled to get accommodation because they've previously been evicted or they've got rent arrears, etc. And this is where it starts to go downhill. You're on a downward spiral. And that's the market that you want to remove yourself away from. And I've been there. If I'm honest, I have been there. There was a property that I had over in Walsall, which is in the West Midlands. And we had a property, it wasn't in the greatest of condition, if I'm honest. I thought, yeah, you know what, we've got one more wear out of this. And we found a family, she's on benefits, and I wish I never took her. We had nothing but problems. So first, she had quite a few kids. I think she had 4 or 5 kids. And they absolutely ruined the house. When I say ruined it, before it was potentially easily rectifiable, when we had this family in, they absolutely ruined it. We had to gut it and start from scratch. So the property attracted the right style of tenant. The property was poor. The tenant that it attracted was poor. As a result, it cost us dearly. The income, let's say that over a year, the income that it generated, let's say it's £600 a month, which is 7,200 gross. By the time they left, we had to do a £20,000 refurb on the property. Now, my question to you, if you're listening, was it worth me putting that tenant in? No, it wasn't. Because in actual fact, I've lost money. It's cost me money by putting that tenant in. If I'd spent £5,000 from the outset and made it better at that point when I had it vacant, it wouldn't have cost me £15,000 extra later. Single lets are fantastic, and if you get it right from the outset, they can be very hassle-free. And going back to my point just of the tenant selection is key. Understanding who the tenant is, understanding where they've come from, understanding what their buying habits are or what's their financial, having a look at the statement, you can very clearly see it on their bank statement, very clearly see what their lifestyle's like. If they get paid, if they're a professional tenant, if they've got paid on the first of the month, if it's all spent and they're in minus or in their overdraft by the 4th or the 5th or by the 7th of the month, what does that tell you about that tenant? What does it tell you about that lifestyle? So you can pick up all these little things just by screening what's going on right in front of you. You've got all this information available to you. And just so that you know, you've got to be cautious. Don't be desperate to take the first person that comes to you. Lots of landlords will say, I've got a house, I've got a mortgage, I've got an outgoing going on the property. Now, someone's going to prepared to pay me £500 a month. Yes, I'll take it. Don't be like me. Don't be like that person that I was, where I took the first person that came to the door without doing all the correct screening, because that can cost you dearly going on in the future. Now, moving forward, we've got to talk about saturation point. Has it become saturation point within the HMO market? We're seeing lots of more landlords sell up HMOs. Is it because they can't manage them? Is it because there's oversaturation? I can give you examples of cities around the country. Now, example being Sunderland. Now, lots of student landlords previously had HMOs and they were renting them out to students, and it was a phenomenal time for them. They were making a fantastic amount of cash flow. The university then goes and creates their own student village. And let's face it, if you're a university, doesn't it not make sense for them to build their own accommodation? because they've got their own captive audience. They've got the students coming into the university, spending money at the campuses, spending the money at the student unions, as well as the restaurants, etc. More importantly, if they could build a building and charge a premium to live on site, does it not make sense? More importantly, if you're a parent and you're watching this or you're listening to this, would you have more comfort knowing that your son or daughter or child is living in a secure accommodation on site, backed by the university, as opposed to a landlord that they do not know and not know whether the property is going to be well maintained throughout that tenancy or whether they're secure and safe? So universities up and down the country have built and have literally tapped into this market. They think, well, hang on, we're making fees from the education, we're making fees from them whilst we're on campus. Why don't we get them to live on campus? And we've got an untapped income source. And let's face it, some of the rooms, they are fetching premium prices, approximately 120, 5, 6, 7, 800 pounds a month for what would in other landlords' properties previously been paying 400, 500, 600 pounds. So is there an oversaturation of HMOs? This is something that you've got to have a look at, and you can do this by simply doing some basic searching skills on websites like Spare Room. Put a test dummy out, put a dummy advert out there. See how many responses you get. How long does it take you to fill that room? Speak to agents in the area. Filling a single let is still very easy, provided that the property is in the right location. Buying single lets close to town centres, close to schools is a big one, because obviously single lets, you'll find parents want to live there, and especially if their kids go to that school. If you find let's say, for argument's sake, a 3-bed semi-detached house or a 2-bed semi-detached house close to a secondary school, let's face it, if that family that's coming to move there has got kids and they're going to that school, they're going to be there for a minimum of 5 years. That's 5 years worth of income that you can't guarantee it, but providing that you treat it, the property's left correctly, you'll have no issues with that. So you've got to look at these things when you're buying a property. Single lets still are very viable. Just going back to my example there of the secondary school, finding the property by a secondary school, and you'll find them for 5 years, and when that family moves out, guess what? Another family will move in. And if their child is just at year, whatever the first year of secondary school is, you've got another 5 years worth of income out of that property. With a HMO, you're at the mercy of tenants coming in and coming out, going in, going out. So there is management. There are questions about how much management and how much time needs to be put into a HMO, even if you give it out to a letting agent. Letting agents are inundated with properties that have become HMOs. How many can they manage? How many can they manage correctly? Is it being managed correctly? These are big questions that are being asked by investors all over the country. So it's just something to think about. Hopefully you've enjoyed the session. Hopefully that's given you something to think about. And if you've got any questions, feel free to ask away. Feel free to email admin@arshellahi.com, or you can go to my social media pages. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as Twitter. Not really very active on Twitter, admittedly. More importantly, you can find me on YouTube. You search for Arsh Ellahi. Feel free to subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell so that you get to see every time that I release a video. Finally, please feel free to download the Property Investor app. So if you've liked the session and you want to know more about property, or you're looking to buy property, or you're looking to trade property, feel free to download the Property Investor app. You can go to App Store, whether it be iOS or Android. Feel free and download the Property Investor app and have a look at the UK's first property investment marketplace. I wish you all well, and I'll speak to you all soon. Thank you.
The large majority of people make a positive change if they take immediate action. So act now. Download the Property Investor app and join Arsh on his social media channels to excel your property journey.